Anger, lust, gluttony, sloth, envy, greed and pride, the 7 deadly sins. You've probably already heard about them, maybe in the church, maybe on a TV show, or maybe from a book you've read. These 7 ancient concepts are deeply ingrained in our society, representing not only the moral failings of humanity, but also the ever-present qualities that each of us unfortunately possesses. They lurk beneath our thoughts and dreams, shaping our decisions that affect not only our lives, but those of those around us. But did you know that according to medieval lore, each of these 7 deadly sins is ruled by the 7 princes of hell? Each one is a powerful demon, the chief of legions of freaks, who takes pleasure in slowly corrupting humanity until he can appropriate the soul and take it to his respective domain in hell. In the next few minutes, we will descend downward, into the dark abyss, where we will meet the 7 rulers of hell to find out who they are, what they do, and whether we can still save ourselves from their influence. In the early 15th century, an anonymous English treatise related to the Lollard movement appeared and quickly began circulating around Europe. This treatise, which is often attributed to John Wycliffe, would become one of the earliest and most influential classifications of demons in history. Called the Lantern of Light, the treatise describes the 7 princes of hell based on the 7 deadly sins. The concept of the 7 deadly sins itself originated at the dawn of Christianity and was later simplified and recognized by Pope Gregory I in the 6th century AD. Less than 1,000 years later, the concept became even more popular in the late Middle Ages, when radical reforms began to take place in the Catholic Church. According to the Lantern of Light, there are 7 demons that represent each mortal sin: Lucifer, pride, Satan, anger, Belphegor, gluttony, Beelzebub, envy, Abaddon, sloth, Asmodeus, lust, and Mammon, greed. Surprisingly, this original classification remains less popular than the one that would later appear as the Classification of Demons by Peter Binsfeld. Born in 1490, Peter von Binsfeld was a German bishop and theologian who later gained notoriety for his involvement in witch hunts. Binsfeld was considered an expert in extracting confessions from accused witches, either voluntarily or through torture. In his view, any confession, whether induced by torture or voluntary, must be accepted as true. In recent decades, he is better known for creating the most influential list of demons and their associated sins. While similar to the Lantern of Light, Binsfeld's classification makes some changes, including replacing certain demons and a different distribution of sins. The 7 chief lords of hell are divided according to the 7 chief vices of men already mentioned, but Peter Binsfeld makes a key change from the previous classification, removing Abaddon from the list and replacing him with Leviathan. In ancient and even biblical texts, Leviathan is a sea monster, but in Binsfeld's interpretation, he rises to the mighty prince of hell. He also exchanges the correspondence between demons and vices. This new distribution takes on a symbolic meaning, not only as a connection between the demon and sin, but also as a path to the corruption of the soul and the punishment that follows for those who succumb to the corresponding temptation. But let us see how these 7 princes of hell are distributed in Binsfeld's classification. Satan represents wrath, Beelzebub, gluttony, Asmodeus, lust, Belphegor, sloth, Leviathan, envy, Mammon, covetousness, and Lucifer, pride. Each of these demons personifies the destructive power of the respective vice and its influence on the human soul. According to the notions of the time, indulging in any of these sins led not just to moral fall, but to literal submission to the demon that embodied it. But let us consider this meaning in more detail. The great adversary, the evil genius of the whole biblical saga, the devil himself, Satan. He is known by many names and persons, but in this classification, Satan is a separate and distinct entity who personifies the sin of wrath. As the representative of wrath, Satan embodies the destructive power of rage, vengeance, and uncontrolled fury. Here he is not merely the universal adversary of virtue, but the personification of wrath itself in all its most devastating forms. The horrifying thing about this particular description of Satan is that he is utterly devoid of reason and logic. Just as true, raw anger defies reason. Anger in its purest form has no boundaries. It does not seek justice, only destruction. It acts impulsively, blindly, uncontrollably. It is violence for violence's sake. Among the 7 princes of hell, Satan is by far the most frequently mentioned in the Bible. His presence is palpable and influential, even when not directly named. He is first mentioned in Numbers 22:22 as the adversary, a word that, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, is a direct transliteration of the Hebrew word Satan. Although unnamed, many believe Satan to be the tempter of Eve in Genesis, as well as the great red dragon that the Archangel Michael defeats in the revelation of John the Theologian. Next on the list is Beelzebub, the demon who personifies gluttony. Gluttony is the excessive and insatiable desire for overconsumption, not only of food and drink, but of all physical and sensual pleasures. What makes Beelzebub's power over this sin particularly horrifying is that no matter how much is consumed, the cravings never go away. According to lore, the curse of this sin continues into hell, where condemned souls are forced to devour without end, without pleasure, and without rest. Beelzebub was originally a Philistine god worshipped in the city of Ekron, but later found his way as a demon into Christian demonology. Beelzebub is also known as the Lord of the Flies, and is even illustrated as a demon resembling a hornet in the Infernal Dictionary. He is also commonly thought of as a stand-in for Lucifer or Satan. Outside of classification, his name is thought to be another name for the devil. According to the 16th century French inquisitor Sébastien Michaelis, Beelzebub is no ordinary demon, but a fallen seraphim, one of the highest angels. Next on the list is Asmodeus, the Prince of Lust. Among demons, he is considered something more special, not because he is mentioned many times in the Bible, but because he is mentioned many times outside the Bible, including in supposed witches' confessions, in an apocryphal text about Solomon, and even in Islamic texts. In Islam, he is sometimes identified with the demon Sar. This demon is found in several apocryphal and Talmudic texts, including the Book of Tobit, the Talmud, and especially the Testament of Solomon. The latter text is particularly intriguing. In it, Asmodeus is one of the demons enslaved by King Solomon to assist him in building the temple. Solomon gains power over the demons through a magic ring given to him by the Archangel Michael. Later, Asmodeus is also overpowered by the Archangel Raphael. In a previous video, we have told you in detail about how Solomon foamed the demons for the building of the temple. Another intriguing fact is that Asmodeus was born of a human mother, and my father is an angel, which by definition makes him a Nephilim. In another version, according to Pope Gregory I, Asmodeus was a former angel of the Order of Thrones before he fell. But why is Asmodeus associated with lust? Almost all the texts that mention him describe him as a seductive but evil spirit, one who seduces women or punishes lustful men. Sometimes he is a subtle seducer, other times a vengeful tormentor. One thing is certain, everything about him revolves around the sin of the flesh, which is why Binsfeld assigns him this very role, Prince of Lust. Speaking of monstrous forms, Belphegor, the ruler of sloth, is often depicted as a huge, ugly demon with a bloated and flabby body, devilish horns, and tail. His nickname, Lord of the Fall, reflects laziness, indifference, and apathy. Curiously, the way he seduces souls is not by force or fear, but by offering them inventions that will make them rich without working. His image is particularly striking. Reclining on a throne, with a languid, lifeless countenance and surrounded by worldly pleasures, he represents the absence not only of motivation, but also of meaning, both materially and spiritually. He is devoid of a higher purpose and is content with what he is. Comfort and convenience are his priority. Anything that involves work, effort, and energy is not worth it. He can only be spurred to action if that action will make everything even easier for him, such as proposing new discoveries and inventions. But his passive, idle state should not make anyone complacent and underestimate his influence. His power is elusive, but enduring. He makes no effort to drive men to sinfulness by any spectacular action or force. Rather, he subtly undermines their drive and will, replacing it with an apathy that intensifies until one is trapped in a bloodless cycle of inaction and stagnation. Leviathan, the prince of envy, is the embodiment of the jealousy that corrodes the heart of man. He turns admiration into bitterness and love into hatred, while the power of the other princes of hell is built on excess, excessive lust, anger, gluttony. Leviathan's power stems from comparison, resentment, and inner turmoil. His anger is not simply rooted in the desire to have what others have, but in rage that anyone else has it at all. He doesn't want to transcend. He wants to destroy, to tear down, not to build up, to humiliate, not to gain. He infects friendships, families, and communities with doubt, rivalry, and malice. Whether it's success, wealth, or love, it feeds on the discontent that you are never enough. In theology and mythology, Leviathan is a huge sea dragon that devours the souls of the damned at the moment of their death. He is a symbol of chaos, destruction, and an elemental nature that recognizes no order or morality. On the other side of spiritual destruction stands Mammon, the ruler of greed, the sin that takes everything but gives nothing. Mammon represents the insatiable thirst for wealth, power, and possessions. It is not just the desire to be rich, but the insatiable desire for more and more resources, higher status, total control, and the utter willingness to sacrifice everything for it: morals, relationships, faith, even one's own salvation. In the New Testament, Mammon is mentioned repeatedly. The word comes from the Latin mammona, which comes from the Aramaic and Hebrew mammon, both meaning fortune or wealth. In the Gospels, Jesus Christ himself warns, "You cannot serve God and mammon." Matthew 6:24. He presents mammon not merely as an object, but as an antagonist to God, a demon demanding worship through greed. Thus, from a mere word for money, Mammon becomes the personification of the destructive power of greed. As the saying goes, money is the root of all evil. But if we speak of the root of all evil, then pride undoubtedly lies at its root. As the Prince of Pride, Lucifer personifies self-love, self-sufficiency, and rebellion against God's authority. He is the archetype of the creature who was the most beloved, the most radiant, and the most exalted among the angels, but at one point believed that he could be equal to God, even superior to him. Lucifer's fall is the most powerful lesson in the Christian tradition, how sublimity can become a curse when infected by pride. Called the morning star that tried in vain to eclipse the sun, he is the perfect image of the haughty soul shamed by its own ambition. But instead of humbling himself, Lucifer insists on going his own way, which leads to his eternal separation and the creation of his own perverse kingdom, hell. In a complete reversal of everything he aspired to, he not only falls into disgrace, but leads all the damned in their losing struggle against heaven. In some texts, Satan and Lucifer are thought to be the same evil, similar to how Beelzebub is sometimes referred to by Satan's name. In other sources, they are entirely different entities. Lucifer is the bringer of light who falls from grace. At the same time, Satan is the great accuser of God and humanity who tests our faith and provokes anger. Depending on what you believe, Satan and Lucifer carry different images in Binsfeld's classification. They each represent different forms of sin, different aspects of the same evil, but they all lead to suffering. Loved or hated, Binsfeld's classification of demons is undoubtedly one of the most fascinating interpretations of the infernal hierarchy. By associating the names of demons with specific vices, it gives us insight not only into demonology, but also into the nature of sin and human weakness. Each demon acts as a bright mirror in which we can see what we would become if we allowed sin to take us over completely. On the other hand, it reminds us that while we are human beings with a tendency to fall into one or more of these vices, we are also able to combat them through their opposite virtues: patience, temperance, chastity, diligence, charity, kindness, and humility. We will never be perfect, but it is the journey from suffering to redemption that makes us human. And do you know what happens when a hardcore atheist is plunged into the depths of hell during a near-death experience? Howard Storm, a respected university professor, radically changes his life after encountering a terrifying vision of the afterlife that challenges everything he believed. But what is it he has seen so much of there? How is hell set up? And how he came back among us, you can learn in the video you see on the left.